I'm where I am. I've got pain. I need help. So
Okay.
I'm going to go see Vardy, see what he can do for me, and tell me what we can do. What the first steps that you would take. And
I mean, the biggest thing with us, we're going to look at each case individually to see exactly what their opportunity is going to be. We'll always look at the history and stuff like that, the things that you've had in the past that you've tried, and then be able to assess those things sometimes in a new light to say, okay, if we looked at multiple pieces of this, what can we do? Can we fix pieces that will ultimately be able to add to the things you've done in the past and make it slightly different? The initial assessment that, from a chiropractic standpoint anyway, is we are going to look at the individual joints, the ability for those joints to become functionally improved from a positioning standpoint. So if there's a little misalignment or a big misalignment in a joint, we try to correct that stuff. If a joint's fixated, it could be perfectly aligned, but it's just not moving properly. And that joint might not even be where your problem is, but because it's somewhere else, it's adding stress to the area your problem is. And so we can fix those areas and actually see improvements in other areas because of something we did somewhere else. So your body's ability to compensate and adapt to the different stresses or whatever's permanently in your back can be addressed that way, and so you can see improvement there. And so that's kind of the approach that we take. We use what's called an athletic model, what we like to call it, and that is, all your professional sports people, they get paid millions of dollars to hit little balls and things around, and the research that goes into the businesses and corporations that own or these athletes are employed by is huge, because you miss one game, you miss one, they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for 10 minutes work sometimes, and so it's very important for the owners and the people who pay these high-end sports people to know exactly how to keep them as healthy as possible, and to be able to assess problems that they have, and when they do have a problem, fix it in the quickest amount of time possible, and have the least amount of setbacks after that or flare-ups after that. So that type of research we kind of incorporate into our chiropractic practice, so that alongside of the chiropractic treatments, any stretches, exercises, this ancillary work that we do, from those types of tools to using anything from kinesio tape to acupuncture to specialized muscle stim units. These tools can be used to facilitate what we're doing, and ultimately it gives that patient the best chance at rapid recovery and not a lot of stuff afterwards that's going to give them long-term problems and things like that.
Athletes, and I know that you work with the Mudcats. Was there a specific player that you worked on that?
You mean
any of the players that came to you that busted, or that you had to help get back together, or was it maintenance training, or what did you do for the Mudcats?
When we worked with the Mudcats, we worked with them on multiple levels. It varied from team to team and athlete to athlete, of course. But with some of the things that we were able to see there is, I had one athlete who was having some shoulder issues, and they were doing a lot of stuff for his shoulder. But after a neck evaluation, we found problems in his cervical and thoracic spine. Now we went in, we cleared those problems out of his neck and thoracic spine, and literally, the next game he was coming to me saying, well, I can check second base now, and I couldn't do that all year. He was basically faking it. So those types of things are really cool. The thing about baseball, especially professional sports, when you play as a job, it's a long season. People get busted up, they get wore down, and when you're treated with chiropractic care, you're able to make sure the joints, the pieces of the body, you facilitate how well they function. So the day-to-day stress and wear and tear associated with a professional sport is lessened. So then you decrease the chances of them having injuries, and so they typically play better then as well. And then, like I said, you're able to address those little needs along the way. It's no different than someone who sits at a desk all day long and is hunched over typing on a computer. they are subjecting their spine and their body to a repetitive stress on a daily basis as well. So, the same model will work exactly for that person the same way as it would for a professional athlete. There's really no need to change. The bodies are the same.
Well, why couldn't the athlete just go to get a good massage?
Well, the massage, the biggest thing about chiropractic is the way that chiropractors and the chiropractic model breaks everything down. Okay, we can't cover anything else. So number one, we can't give someone some opioid or something like that and give them a complete painkiller and they'll say, oh, I feel great, because that doesn't necessarily fix any kind of physical problem that exists. We can't cover it up, which means the only way we can get someone better is to actually go in, find what's wrong, and repair it or make that person change. These internal transformations need to occur. And if the joint doesn't move properly, that's a problem. If the joint's misaligned, that's a problem. Okay, but those things can create secondary things like tight muscles. So you say, oh yeah, my muscle's tight. I go to a massage therapist, I work on it, it feels good. But no one's touched the vertebrae. No one's touched the joint itself. Okay, so now, and sometimes the joints aren't even assessed. So they don't even know if there's one or two joints or a position that joint's getting sticky or not moving properly. And you get the massage, it feels okay, but that problem, and it was initiated from a biomechanical problem that was occurring at the joint, never addressed. Okay.
Well, then I guess I never saw my massage therapist with a X-ray machine in their office.
That's correct. They don't evaluate things that way, and X-rays are a great tool. They help us assess what's going on from an internal structural viewpoint. You can identify things like arthritis. You can identify things like congenital problems where vertebrae and joints, they just form and have different shapes than they normally would, which could affect something as simple as how they're stretching or how they do a certain exercise. So we can identify those things and then make sure that the stretches, the exercises, whatever we may have prescribed for that patient are not just a cookbook or just a standard stretch. It maybe actually need to be customized for the individual.
So now we know that, okay, I'm an athlete or I'm an old person, but what if I was 30 years younger? Would I just come in and get an assessment, or is there a program for the younger person?
It doesn't matter what age you're at. As long as you have joints, there's always going to be a risk of having some kind of problem occur with the motion and the functioning of that joint. So, the types of treatments may change from, we treat infants. So, we have babies come here on their way home from the hospital.
What do you do for a baby?
Okay, so for a baby, we won't necessarily X-ray, but you evaluate that baby the same way you would an adult, looking for motion, aberrant motion problems, irritations with certain things. With children or with infants especially, it's actually very easy. The downside is an infant can't say, hey, doc, my neck hurts right here when I turn to breastfeed, and so I don't want to breastfeed because it hurts when I put my head there. Okay, what do? They just don't breastfeed, or they cry, and you're like, what's wrong with my child? But we have tests that we can do here where it's almost like a reflex, and the child will reflexively turn their head. Based on these reflexes, when a child turns their head to one side and not to the other, you can very quickly identify if there's a restriction or in that child. Then our task becomes to figure out why. Is there one level that was irritated during the birth process or during pregnancy that has created that stress, and then we find it and then start working to try to correct it.
How important is the history of a person when you are talking with the patient? For instance, I went and saw my doctor. He says I have this back pain I need to have corrected. It's been hurting me for 2 years. So do we just go back 2 years and tell you what happened 2 years ago, or more?
Not so much. Whatever. When a patient shows up in our office, even when they've had car accidents and things like that, what we find and what we see in their spine is always basically a collection of everything they've done up until that day. It's how active they were. It's how well their diet was. Okay, it's how do they sleep? How do they sit? What kind of repetitive stresses have they been putting in their body for the last year, for the last 20 years? Did they play sports when they were in college? Did they have an old injury when they were in their teens? Did they break a leg? All these types of things create different physical stresses in the body. And the human body is amazing. It's designed to survive. So when you have an issue, be it a broken leg or a bum hip or stub your toe, and you don't just stop everything. You continue to move, you continue to do things, and your body is going to find its best adaptive state to that stress or whatever it is, which is great. For survival, that's super important. But in the grand scheme of things, those little types of issues that arise can create mechanical stressors. And those mechanical stressors then can filter down through and eventually lead to anything from just an altered gait to
A little bit of when you were a little kid in high school, you dreamed of being a chiropractor.
Well, I was in sports. It just seemed to fit so well. My wife, she's also heavily involved in sports. She's a full-time, basically a softball fast pitch instructor now. And this is the world, or this is our life, is to be passionate about training athletes, getting to their top level, and it works as a great combination right now. And that's something that we value and see a value in every day.
And you have 3 children?
We have 3 children. They all play sports. They're all very active. They've all had chiropractic care since they all received their first treatments at the hospital before they even made it home. They train very hard. They've played in some elite teams and traveled all over the country for the sports that they play. So we're completely immersed in that environment right now. And so we get it from all angles. I've coached, I've been a parent, I've been a caretaker for these types of athletes. So it's a great life, and it's one that we really enjoy being a part of.